we would like to thank our friends and partners, the AADC of Atletismo Sudamericano, who has together we had worked with Claudia to provide us with this Zoom platform, which helps us a lot in our.
You are the host, Pieter.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to deal with you on out-of-stadium events tonight, and I'll try my best to make it the best we can. So let me share my screen with you.
I'm sorry about that. The internet is very unstable in Marrakesh, where I am. So I would like to thank my friends who have answered the call to help after the first evaluation of World Athletics, to help our friends who have taken the first exams and had not been so successful. So we have decided to help them. And by doing some videos, share our experience. It is not a World Athletics videos. It is sharing of experience from the point of view from experienced and seasoned and experienced officials, international referees who have a lot to share with respect to their role and the rules application of the rules in difficult situations. So I thank Pieter, who he will be the intervening party today. Pieter, as you know, is a World Athletics ITO and is also a course measurer, a course measurer. So Pieter has a lot to share with regards to out of stadium. So he will be covering the out of stadium, the courses, and probably a bit on race walking also, and the different rules. The most important rules with regards to pit stop. The aim of this session is not to replace World Athletics. So we are going to have an overview of the rules, not going too much into details. And Pieter has prepared a lot of slides, but he will go fast on that. And the idea is that we want you to ask us questions. We are at your disposal so that you can ask questions, and we will reply towards the end through an open discussion. So
Pieter, I think Suran lost the connection.
Okay.
The internet is instable there, so it's up to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for international sports. We will do out of stadium events. I'm Pieter de Jager, World Athletics silver referee, and also World Athletics aims a route measurer. For those that don't know me, forgot how I look, this is a young man. So we look at out of stadium events. In out of stadium events, we will look at race walking, World Athletics Technical Rule 54. We will look at road races, Technical Rule 55. We will look at cross-country, Technical Rule 56, and then also mountain and trail races, Technical Rule 57. So for race walking, First of all, judging of race walking is a specialized activity, and we will only concentrate on certain matters not involving any judging. If you want to be a race walking judge, there's a special course you can do, and there you will learn more what and what not. Standard race walking distances are as follows. The 1,000 meters is on track. The kilometers are normally on the road. So 3,000, 5,000, 10 kilometer, 10,000, 20 kilometer, 20,000, 35 kilometer, 35,000, and 50 kilometer, 50,000. If you go to a track for 50,000 meters, it will be 125 laps of 100 or 400 meters. So lap counting will be a major problem and needs to be done properly. The definition of race walking. Race walking is a progression of steps taken that the walker makes. Sorry, let me just get this out of the way a bit. Makes contact with the ground so that no visible to the human eye loss of contact occurs. The advancing leg must be straightened, not bent at the knee from the moment the first contact with the ground until the vertical upright position. That is the definition. If we look at how it will work, two situations we are looking at. First of all, loss of contact, and then also bent knee. For loss of contact, there you can see a picture. As soon as both feet are on the air, you are running, you're not walking anymore. And the judge will give you a yellow paddle with that sign on to say you lost contact. For bend of knee, you can see the position here. The knee, when it touches the ground, is not straight, it's bent. If you look at the previous one, the knee was straight. So that is bent knee. And if that occurs, the judge will give you that paddle to show it's a bent knee. For older people, the masters athletes, very difficult to get their knee straight anymore. So we always try to be lenient towards the master athletes, but the rule is there, it must be a straight knee when you touch the ground. So judges will warn the athlete with a yellow paddle as soon as something happens there, and the athlete got a chance to correct what is done wrong. If you do not correct, a red card will be issued and sent to the chief judge. That is an example of a red card. The judge's red card will give you the distance, men or women, the bib number, the reason and the time, and the judge number and the judge signature. This will be sent to the chief judge and he will deal with it further. After 4 red cards, the chief judge will show the athlete a red paddle to show him he's disqualified. And that is an example of the red paddle that the chief judge will do. As soon as 3 red cards is received for an athlete, the athlete will be directed to a penalty zone. That is a new development in race walking. There will be a penalty zone, and that is an example of a penalty zone, where you've got the course, and you've got the penalty zone here. And then there will be an official here, let the athlete in the penalty zone for a certain time, and then he can exit again and go on with his walking. The chief judge assistant will be here working with the red cards and help the chief judge, and the chief judge will also be in this area. Posting board, we will later see the posting board, but it will also be in this area. That's about 80 meters from the finish line, so that there's chance for the athlete to go on. Times in the penalty zone, it comes down to half a minute for every 5 kilometers of the race. So if it's a 5 kilometer or 5,000 meter race, it will be half a minute in the penalty zone. For 10 kilometer, 1 minute. For 50 kilometer, it will be 5 minutes in the penalty zone. And you can go only in the penalty zone once. After that, you can go out again. If an athlete receives the 3rd red card, okay, first of all, before you go out, he's in the penalty zone, you go out. And that is the 3rd red card. Actually, it must be a 4th red card, sorry. If you receive that and it's not practical to get him into the penalty zone, no, sorry, it's before you get into the penalty zone. There's 3 red cards. but he's past the penalty zone on his way to the finish line. His finish time will be adjusted with the time he had to spend in the penalty zone. So if he passed the penalty zone, the chief judge gets the third red card, and it is a 20-kilometer race, he will add 2 minutes to the finish time of the athlete. As soon as the athlete is released from the penalty zone and he receives a fourth red card, he will be disqualified by the red paddle of the chief judge. Then an athlete who fails to enter the penalty zone will be disqualified by the referee, not the chief judge. There will be a referee, and that is a normal red card and yellow card of the referee. So the referee, that is a disciplinary matter, he will disqualify the athlete not going into the penalty zone. And then an athlete who is disqualified must leave the track or the route immediately. He can't go on. He is disqualified. And then one or more posting boards will be placed on the route near the finish line to keep athletes informed of the number of red cards that they received. So that will be near the finish line or near the penalty zone. The race conduct in race walking. An athlete may leave the course with permission and under supervision of an official. Normally, if they walk a long distance, 35 or 50 kilos, they need to go to a toilet or whatever. So that it is possible that they can do it, but it must be with permission and a supervision of an official. But no shortening of the distance will be allowed. So where he left the course, he must come in again and start walking from there again. Just an interesting, we had a situation the other day with our South African 35-kilometer championships, where an athlete walks about 10 minutes on the 2-kilometer course. And he went into the toilet and he stayed there for 10 minutes before he came out. So that can always be misled as if he was miscounted for one lap. So we're very careful. The official working there need to make notes of this, whatever is happening there. Then a referee can disqualify an athlete in this regard when reports are received from judges or umpires that the distance was shortened. If we look at road courses, we need actual measurements of the course. Normally loops not shorter than 1 kilometer, no longer than 2 kilometers. That is according to technical rule 5411. So it must be between 1 and 2 kilometers. The recommendation is the best adjacent, exactly 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer loops. That makes lap counting much easier, and it can be done quite quickly and easier if it's exactly 1 or 2 kilometer loops. For a finish in the stadium, the loop can be outside the stadium. They want to finish in the stadium. The loop must be as close as possible to the stadium to allow this. We will look at the example of this. So the route must be measured by a qualified route measurer, and the measurement will be done according to technical rule 55.3, which is part of the road races. This is an example of a straightforward route. Even a route measurer don't need a bicycle method for this one. If you have a radius of the circle, semicircle of 4 meters, that means that walking distance will be on 4.3 meters on both sides. You can calculate the distance of the length of the half circle here on the half circle on that side. 2 times 4.3 times pi, normal arithmetic or mathematics, you get is 27,02. If it's a 2 kilometer loop, you subtract that from 2 kilometer, divide by 2 for the straights, and you'll see it's 2 times 986.5 meter, and you can measure that with a steel tape and put the 2 arcs in, and you know exactly it will be 2 kilometer loop. If it's a 1 kilometer loop that you need, straights must be 486.5 kilometer. And in this example, you will have cones on the solid lines and the walking on the dotted lines. The athlete might come closer to the cones and walk back, but that will just lengthen the distance that he is walking. A clever athlete will walk straight from here to there. So that is just an example of a race walk route. If it's near a stadium, you want to finish in the stadium, they will leave the course at point A, and they will walk from A, according to a certain route, to the finish line. and then all you do is the distance from A to F, you measure that, and you make the same distance from A to B. And B will then be your start line, and your control for your laps and everything will be at B. So the distance, if it's a 20 kilometer over 2 kilometer loop, they will walk 9 loops of 2 kilometer, and the last one will walk from B to A and then to F to make the same distance as from A to B. So the distance will in the end be the same. If you look at road races, World Athletics Rule 55, technical rule, just an example of the start of a road race. The designing of a road running route must be on made-up roads. Please try and get quiet streets where there's not a lot of traffic. If necessary, complete road closure is necessary, if it's possible. And it can be an out and back route where they run one side out, make a U-turn and come back. Organizers always would like to make historical places and monuments the part of the route. So they go past the monument here and that historical building. But I can tell you now, the top athletes, they're not interested in that. The top athletes are interested in the route in front of them, the road in front of them. They go for the route and they go as far as possible, as fast as possible. But for the backgrounders, this might be interesting. They might even stop, take some photos of these monuments and places. Double route, loop routes. Normally, if you've got a 21 and a 42 or a 10 and a 21, you will have a 10 loop and then a double loop, another 10, gives you 20, and then you add 1 kilometer, 1.1 kilometer to get to the half marathon. Or half marathon, you've got a single lap for half marathon, and the athletes do a second one for the marathon. In cases like that, you always need an out and back portion to correct the distance. It's the only way to get that correct. You can go around the block, but then you might meet a few meters or a few hundred meters. So the only way to do that correctly is to get a out and back portion to correct the distance. Please have a look at barricades, fencing, cones, wherever it's necessary on the route, so that they can do it that way. The start and finish lines. You normally must decide where is the start line, where's the finish line. Most races, the finish line is a fixed point, and then you measure in reverse to get to a start line to make sure the distance is correct. If the start and the finish must be on the same point, somewhere you will have an out and back portion to correct the distance. So we need accurate distances, and measurement will be by calibrated bicycle method. For world records, the following are accepted distances: 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer, the half marathon, the marathon, 50 kilometer, 100 kilometer, and then also road relays only on the marathon distance. If you look in the road running rules, you also find 15 kilometer, 20 kilometer, 30 kilometer, I'm not sure exactly what else, but these are the only ones that will be accepted for world record distances. And for world record, the start-finish separation must less than 50% of the race distance. So if you took a straight line from the start to the finish on the 10 kilometer, it must be less than 5 kilometer. So point-to-point straight line is not acceptable for world records. And also the overall decrease in elevation must be less than 1 meter per kilometer. So for a 10 kilometer, the start must be or must not be more than 10 kilometer higher than the finish. If it's the other way around, the start is lower, the finish 20 meters higher, not a problem. But the decrease in elevation from the start to the finish cannot be less, must be less than 1 meter per kilometer, 0.1% of the distance. Then principles of route measurement, course not less than the official distance. So when you measure the route, it makes sure that the distance is not less than the official distance. Marathon 42,195 or whatever the case may be. And we as road measurers, to make sure that the distance will be correct, we put a safety factor in 1 meter per kilometer that we will add. So for 10 kilometers, we will add a 10 meter. For 42 kilometer, sorry, it will be 42 meters that we add to the down distance. That is just to make sure if there's a record and they remeasure the route, that we make sure the distance is not too short. We already said it must be measured by the calibrated bicycle method, and it must be measured on the shortest possible route. So where the athlete will run, he will always take the shortest possible route, and that is where the measurement must be done. If you want them to do not on the shortest possible route, a little bit wider, you need to put barriers or cones to force the athlete on the route where it was measured. In major competitions, you will find a blue line for the route that was measured, and the athlete knows exactly where it was measured and where the shortest possible route is. This is an example of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, the blue line in the dotted line, and there you can also see the 2 kilometer mark and the 23 kilometer mark in the two photos that I took there. For the Olympic Games in Beijing, the entrance to the stadium, you can see the blue line that was measured into the stadium. And I've got another example of the Akron Marathon in Ohio, the blue line that was measured for this marathon. And you can also have temporary route marking. In this case, was done by maize meal. It's cheaper than lime powder. And you make arrows just to improve the marshalling on the day. The marshal working on this corner will know exactly, the athletes running will know exactly where to go. And as Natasha said, it's environmental friendly. Afterwards, little birds come and they eat nicely on all my arrows. The distance in kilometer on the route shall be displayed to all the athletes according to technical rule 55.4. This is just an example of a 9 kilometer mark of a race that past our house. This is about 20 meters from our gate. Then from the route measurer, you will get certain documents, and you will get the measurement documents, you will get calibration courses, you will get a route map, you will get a route description of the kilometer marks. Those two are normally combined into one document. The layout of the start area, that's important. The layout of the finish area, layout of the turnaround points, and the profile, and then a certificate. Now, you as referee need all these documents to make certain decisions on the route on the day of the race, and to make sure everything is fine and in place. The measurement documents, there will be 1, 2, 3, or even more documents like that.
Pieter?
Seems to have been freezed.
Yes.
Let's wait a few seconds.
For you as referee, all you must take note.
Sorry, Pieter, we lost you.
You don't have to. It was done.
Peter, sorry.
Okay,
if you can return. Yeah.
Okay.
If you can return the last slide. And
previous slide, we lost you. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Where was the
No. The next one.
That's fine.
The next one, Pieter, we lost you from the when you were talking about the forms now.
Okay, please let me know because internet is.
Yeah.
Right. So there can be more than one. This is for the referee of no use. The calibration note, it was the calibration course, and it was calibrated the bicycle in the correct place. Then there will be a route map. On the route map, it's important to have the street names. So you as referee can go on the streets. If you want to go shortcut, you can see where you can go, where you want to go. The kilometer marks on the route. For this is a 5-kilometer route. They start here, they go down 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3, 4, and then the 5 at the finish line. And there's also a profile. I mentioned the profile. I normally put the profile as part of my route map. Then you get a route description. My description is the route as well as the kilometer marks. That is for this specific route, the 5 kilometer. Just to get it a little bigger that we can read it. The route was measured on the shortest possible route unless otherwise indicated. And then the 0 kilometer, which is the start, I say exactly where it is, 89 meters west of the middle of the pedestrian crossing at the entrance gate of the church, 6 meters east of the middle of the entrance to the total garage, in the middle of the pedestrian walk path connection with the Silvings Boulevard. And then the athletes start in the western direction. They turn left into Atlas Road using the southbound lanes. At the intersection of Atlas Road and Merlin Road, the athletes turn right and cross over to the northern lanes running northwards in Atlas Road. The athletes run on the left-hand side of the road. That is to show for the organizer exactly where, if the cones is necessary, what he must do. So 1 kilometer is in Atlas Road, northbound lanes, plus minus 150 meters past Merlin Road, 30 meters before lamppost 64. With as lampposts are numbered, it makes our task much easier. And then 24 meters before the 80 kilometer speed limit. I give normally 2 or 3 distances to fixed points so that it's easy to find. And then a left into Bus Road, left into Kaap, etc., etc. So just an indication of how we describe the route. But then we also give a line. And here you can see
Pieter,
Google Earth pictures
sorry,
of the
Pieter.
church, pedestrian walk march in the middle of this pedestrian walking there. Yes?
If you can close
Can
your
we-
camera, maybe it's easy to listen because the last slide we couldn't listen.
Yes, enter. Okay, gaan jy. Ja, I'm sitting here now. Can you see me now? I'm
No,
not sure.
We can see, but if you can come back 1 slide and talk again.
Is it fine now?
We didn't hear you on the last slide, Pieter. We were not hearing you on the last slide.
Okay, the previous one.
Yes, thank you.
Back, sorry. Okay, this was the description. This is a layout of the start area. As I said in the description, I mentioned the 89 meters from the pedestrian crossing at the entrance of the church. So you as referee can on the day go and make sure that the start line is in the correct position and the direction that they start. And you will see later on the finish will come on the other side and they go up the street here. So for the finish, the Google Earth picture was not clear. So I made a little sketch to say they come past the start line, turn left up to the entrance of the parking area, and there's a finish line in the middle of the concrete strip, which is clear 75 meters from the entrance gate. So also you can use this to make sure you know where you are and that the set out is in the correct position. Route maps can also be hand drawn like this one. It's an example of the Alaska 10-kilometer classic in Anchorage in Alaska. And you will see they start here. They go, the street names are given. They show you exactly where they're going. There's the Kisla Park, Chester, CK Trail, and then they break and they start here again. They go up to the finish line, and then the start area will give you exactly the distance from the two streets. So you know exactly where the start is and the finish as well, inset there to show you exactly where the finish is. Sorry, so it don't have to be like I do it. It can be like hand-drawn as well. And then the certificate is an example of the Jager Gaborone Marathon that I've measured, 42,195 kilometer, and it is valid for 5 years. It was measured in 2018, so in 2022 it expired. In January, I remeasured all the routes, and I'm still busy with the paperwork to send it for certification for the specific race. Let's look at the road running. The start of the road running can be started by firing of a gun, a cannon, an air horn, or like device, anything that can be heard by the athletes. And if there are a lot of athletes, the louder, the better. There's an example of a normal starting gun that can be used, or an air horn that can be used. I don't have a picture of a cannon, but it can also be used, especially when there's thousands of athletes, to make sure everybody can hear the start. The commands, normal for distances 800 meters or longer, on your marks, and firing of the gun. That is for road running. Warning shots with large number of athletes to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. You can do one warning shots 5 minutes before the time, 3 minutes before the time, and then 1 minute before the time. Just make sure that the athletes knows about this, because if they don't know and they hear a shot, they will go and you won't be able to stop them. So I personally prefer not to use the warning shots. I would rather on a microphone tell them so many minutes left or whatever, and not use any shots. Safety of the athletes, always the responsibility of the organizers, and you as referee must make sure that they do apply all the rules that is necessary for the safety of the athletes. Refreshment stations on road running. Here's an example of a refreshment station, and there's bottles and bottles of water that the athletes can get. Water and other suitable refreshments can be supplied. At the start, it must be available, as well as at the finish. Normally at the start, you have a small table where the athletes enter, where they can get some water. Most athletes bring their own water, but after the finish of the race, you need to give them. Drinking and sponsoring stations along the route. Water shall be available at intervals of about 5 kilometers. In South Africa, now we work on 3 kilometers, but World Athletics rules is 5 kilometers, but more regular intervals in extreme weather conditions. So it's very hot. You can even have every 2 kilometers, make sure that there are water for the athletes. And for events longer than 10 kilometers, other refreshments than water may be provided. And this includes drinks, energy supplements, it can even be food. You always find on long distances, there might be oranges, there might be bananas, there might be jelly babies, whatever they give. Potatoes is also a very popular one. Organizers will determine refreshments to be provided based on the conditions of the day. Then personal refreshments, top athletes especially, athletes can provide their own refreshments. And for major races, they will nominate the station where it must be available. So they will pack their own refreshments in bottles, and they put on the bottle the station where it must be available, some thing that they will notice or notify where it will be, and that they will be able to see which is their bottles. The refreshments will be kept under supervision by officials, so it will be handed in. Officials will look after it overnight or whenever it's possible. And these officials will then place the refreshments on the nominated tables where the athletes would like to have it. Athletes must collect their own personal drinks, or it can be put in the hands of the athletes by authorized persons working at the tables. But races with large number of athletes, it's the best to give this task to the team managers and make them responsible to make sure that their athletes get what they need. An organizer, if there's a lot of athletes, it's very difficult to control this. Make the team managers responsible and give them the option to get to the table to feed their athletes. stand and hand rule is important. No running with the athletes. You stand there, you give the athlete run past, throw the bottle away, you can go pick it up, but you're not allowed to run with the athlete while he's having his refreshments. An athlete may carry refreshments by hand or on their body, provided it's carried from the start or it was collected and received from an official refreshment station. There's an example of a belt that they normally put, a waist belt, they put on, and it's full of water, full of energy drinks, full of energy, whatever you need along the route. But it must be carried from the start or received, collected at the official refreshment station. You can't stop somewhere in between by somebody and collect drinks like that. An athlete may receive or pass to another athlete refreshments, provided that it was carried from the start or it was collected at the official station. But any continuous support between athletes may be regarded as unfair assistance, and the athlete can be warned and even disqualified. So warnings or disqualifications may be issued. On race conduct, athlete again may leave the mark course with permission and supervision. No shortening of distance to be covered. Again, the same as race walking that we had. And then umpires should be placed at regular intervals, key points to control this. Normally, athlete would like to go to a toilet along the route, make sure there is an umpire or an assistant referee at that point to control this and make sure that the athlete do what is necessary. Other umpires should move along the route during the race to control whatever is going on in the race, and they report any irregularities to the referee. So they can warn the athlete, umpires, assistant referees, they can act as assistant referees, warning the athletes along the route, give the information through, but the chief referee will do the disqualifications. Warnings by yellow card can be done during the race. Any place where you see it, you can warn an athlete, give it through to the other referees as well. But disqualifications by red card only after the finish line. Why is that? The reason, when disqualified, an athlete has the option to appeal. And if you win the appeal and you haven't finished the race, you have problems. So you must be allowed to finish the race to be able to appeal on certain matters that he was disqualified on. Board of Appeal will decide in the end. That's right. And then they can reinstate the team and he can win prize money, whatever the case may be. Okay, let's look at cross country. International distances for cross country. We recently had the World Championships in Australia. Senior men and senior women do it over 10-kilometer courses. And the 20 men 8-kilometer, and the 20 women 6-kilometer, and the 18 men 6-kilometer, and the 18 women 4-kilometer. And then also a new one, a mixed relay. 4 athletes, each do 2-kilometer, and there's normally 2 men and 2 women taking part in this event. The cross-country course must be open or woodland area, covered by grass as far as possible, natural obstacles, existing natural obstacles if possible, or you can build some new ones if there's no obstacles available. Must be a challenging but interesting course as far as possible. Must be wide enough, at least 5 meters, for the athletes to run 2 or 3 or 5 next to each other, be able to pass each other on the route. And again, 2-kilometer loops or 1.5 to 2 kilometer normally. Best is if you can have exactly the 2-kilometer or 1. If you need a short lap, it must always be the first lap. For instance, if in your country, if you need a 5-kilometer loop, you've got a 2-kilometer loop. Your first loop will be a 1 kilometer and then followed by 2 2-kilometer loops to make sure it's 5 kilometer. The total ascent descent of at least 10 meters. So it mustn't be very flat, it must get up and downs for the athletes to make it interesting. And keep the start and the finish separate, not the same point, easier to have it separate. Always try and avoid high obstacles. Short people suffer to get over the high obstacles. Deep ditches, it's very dangerous as well. Dangerous ascents and descents, try to avoid it. Thick undergrowth, so that the athletes can just get these people in here. Okay. Narrow gaps or hindrances in the first 300 meters. Just get somebody.
Mute him.
I'm busy, just a moment.
Desiree, mute yourself. Desiree, mute yourself.
Thank you. Sorry for that. I had to get that now closed. So narrow gaps or hindrances in the first 300 meters. You can have narrow gaps here and there, but not in the first 300 meters where there's a lot of athletes. Crossing of roads must be kept to a minimum. And if you have to cross road, try to cover it with grass, with earth, or with mats. For the athletes that do run with spikes. Long straights, avoid it, except at the start where you need long distance. The measurement of cross-country routes, it's approximate distances, not as accurate as road running. So no accurate measurement is needed, and it can be done with a measuring wheel, or you can do it on Google Earth or whatever is necessary to do it. Just an example of a cross-country route. From Y, you follow the red line all the way, it will give you a 2 kilometer back to Y. So the distance from Z to the finish line after the last lap is the same from Z to Y, to make sure that the distance is correct. And the distance from Y to X, from the start to X, is more or less the same distance, so that you know if they start here to get to X, it's the same as from Y to X, and the finish the same. So that is an interesting loop for a 2 kilometer loop. If you need 1 kilometer loop for 5 kilometers, you can do it like that. Start here from X, they go straight from A to B, not that portion there. Then they follow the normal route from C to D straight again, and from E they go back there. So that will give them 1 kilometer, and then they do the red, follow the red for twice to get to the 5 kilometer. Just an example of how it can be done. Cross-country markings, clearly marked with tape on both sides, with fences at crucial areas. That's an example of tape that is on the one side, so the athletes know exactly where to go. Then for major cross-country world championships and that, you'll get a wide 1 meter corridor for officials and media, where they can move next to the course out of the way of the athletes. But only accredited people allowed in this area, nobody else, it's only accredited people. Crossing of general public only at crossover points, and these must be controlled by marshals, so they can see there's a gap, they can let general public cross the route from one side to the other side, but it must be clear. And always keep in mind the safety of the athletes in designing a route for cross-country. Start of cross-country, the same as for road running, or for road running, whatever. Starting by gun, cannon, or air on. The commands are the same on your marks, firing the gun. And again, you can do warning shots, but I prefer not to do that because the athletes might think it's the start of the race. But in major competitions where they have a lot of athletes, departure boxes at the start, wherever possible. And that is so that team members can line up behind each other and they all get going. So that is an example of the starting pens. There's 5 of them, and on the ground, this is what it will look like. The finish of the cross country must be wide enough to allow several athletes to run side by side. If they chase each other to the finish line, they must be able to do that. And if possible, a timing clock so the athlete can also see and everybody else can see the time. There's an example of a timing clock at the finish of a cross-country route. Finish lanes or funnels, tunnels, whatever you call them at the finish, to make sure that the athletes finish in order, and you can take the numbers, the names, whatever is necessary to make the results. They must be 8 to 10 meters after the finish line, 35 to 40 meters long, and 0.7 to 0.8 meters wide. Athletes must not be able to pass each other in the tunnels. That is the main purpose of this. There's an example of finishing tunnels, funnels in the end, where the athletes can go to the finish line and the people will control them at the end of the tunnel. If you got transponder timing system, it's not necessary for these. The athletes can go over the mats with their timing, but it must be backed up with a video recording of all the finishes. So if there's problems, you can go back to the finish to make sure that the athlete did finish the route. Refreshment station. Water and other suitable refreshments can be applied or supplied at the start of the finish, same as a road running. Drinking and sponging stations. Each lap, if warranted by weather conditions. Better to have one, can be two, where you have water and sponging station. Can either be a mist station where the athletes can go through if it's very hot. Extreme hot weather conditions, more regular intervals. If you look at mountain and trail races, it's a natural terrain, can be sand, dirt roads, forest paths, footpaths, snow trails, etc., whatever you can get to have these. Various environments, mountains, forests, plains, deserts, etc., wherever you can go. Mostly off-road surfaces. Paved surfaces just to link the trails, so you keep it to a minimum. If you've got from the one side to the other side of the road, they can go over, but keep the minimum as far as possible. If you've got mountains, it's more safe for the athletes. I hope my internet is still there. But the route must be clearly marked so that no navigation skills will be required. Athlete must be able to follow the route as far as possible or for the whole distance. Preferably existing roads and trails so that they know they're not lost. There's no limits in distance or altitude gain for trail races. Can be up and down as far as possible. It can be a few hundred meters up, few hundred meters down, in between or between start and finish. Mountain races are traditionally divided into, first of all, uphill races. Uphill of distance for up to 42.2 kilometers. Can be up and down races, go up and go down, and also average altitude gain loss between 50 and 250 meters. That is for the mountain races. The start, again, the commands will be the same. On your marks, fire of the gun. Traditionally, you will have a mass start of all the athletes going at the same time, but separate start can also be done where athletes are separated by either gender categories or by age categories. Did the men go first or the women go first and followed by the men, or the youngest first and then the master athletes later, depends on the organizer. But the safety and the environment of the environment as well is very important for the athletes. It's a responsibility of the organizing committee to make sure of the safety factors, and specific conditions need special planning. So if there's snow or forecast of snow, make sure that everything is in place. For high altitude, that the athletes know about it, changing weather conditions, make provision for that, available infrastructure so that there is place where they can get to rescue place or whatever is necessary. Equipment for mountain and trail races. Normally, there's no need for specific mountaineering equipment, but hiking poles can be allowed on discretion of the organizers, and normally that is the case. Organizers may also recommend or impose that certain equipment must be done. Mandatory equipment due to expected weather conditions, they have to do a warm jacket, raincoat, heat blanket, or whatever is necessary that they think is necessary on the route. Athletes must carry this equipment with them, so it must be able to carry them. And athletes must be able to alert in situation of distress of accident. So there must be some other way that they can let them know I'm in problems, come and get me or come and help me. And they must be able to wait in safety and warmth for the arrival of help. So athletes must be prepared for any condition. The organizers shall publish specific regulations prior to the race. Details of the responsible organizers so that everybody knows who is responsible. Program of events. Detailed info on the technical characteristics of the race, like total distance, total accident descent, main difficulty of the course, so the athletes can prepare themselves on what is necessary. A detailed route map and profile of the route, so again for preparation purposes. How the course will be marked, the criteria that will be used to mark the course, the location of control posts, medical aid stations, and then allowed, recommended, or mandatory equipment that will be available. The safety rules to be followed must be published there, and then any penalties or disqualification rules that will be applicable to the race. If you look at measurement of mountain and trail races, first of all, like cross country, approximate distances, very different. You can't measure it on the bicycle method. No accurate measurement is needed. Normally it's measured by GPS. Somebody will go over the route, make sure it can be done, and the GPS will show you the route. Or it can be measured on maps, Google Maps, Google Earth, whatever the possibility is. So that in short, the responsibilities of the referees, what they will have to do, what they will have to look at. And if there's any questions, I'm prepared to see if I can answer any questions.
That was a brilliant presentation, Pieter. Congratulations. Now the floor is open. Now anyone who wants to ask questions, they can open the mic and ask directly. Of course, just to put the emoji of hand, put your hands up, and Pieter will answer your questions.
You're welcome. If my internet connection is not unstable, I will try my best. So I hope I could tell you something that will help you in the exam that you have to do. But if there's any questions, I'm prepared to look into that. There's a question there, how many officials, referees are expected per type of event? That depends on for race walking, it's said 6 to 8 judges, the chief judge is a referee. For cross country, it depends on the course and what happens there. It can be 2, it can be 5, it can be 10. So as long as they know what each one of them will have to do. Road running again, depends on the organizers, how many referees or people they want, and they can do it that way. There's no specific that say that.
As regards to the recording, all recordings will be compiled and will be posted on the YouTube channel. We are working on that, and we will send you the link as soon as it is ready. So all recordings we have, and it will be posted on the YouTube channel.
You're welcome to share it with whoever would like to listen to and see this. Again, Suren, thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I mean, you deserve it. If you are one of the world's most seasoned experts in road racing, road measuring, and people don't know about that. That's why it's fantastic, this opportunity given to really experts who know the trade by heart. Let's put it like this. So you deserve it, Pieter. It's no problem about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pieter.
Thank you, Claudia.
Can Pieter, just talking about incidents which can happen? We had this yesterday. We talked about this at the arrival of the marathon, when the athletes were entering the stadium. The leading athlete, actually, she hit the official, one of the officials, by mistake. The official was crossing the track, and she lost the lead, and she actually, the one which was second, won the race. Now, you as referee, what would be your decision?
As referee, for me, the person that first finished the finish line is the winner. I will always, if there's something happened on the organizer side that the first athlete took a wrong turn or whatever, and finished too late, finished second, I will recommend to them to give the prize money the same. But you can't, the rule is you must cross the finish line for the winner, and the first one to cross the finish line is the winner. That is how I see the rule.
Yes, that's the right answer.
Yeah.
I have another one, Pieter.
Yes, go ahead.
My own is this: a walking race, and one of the officials, biased towards the athlete who is in second place, runs out and pulls out, then disqualifies the athlete who is in first place.
Come again, John?
All right, walking race.
Yep.
200 meters to go to the finish line, and an official runs out and pulls out the winner because the winner is beating his athlete.
Oh.
So he runs out and disqualifies the runner and pulls him out of the race.
No, I don't think that is possible. It can be done. That is, I will definitely, well, the official is definitely not in the right position to do that.
Yeah. Another situation, Pieter, the arrival of the cross country ladies in Bathurst, and it's good to talk about this situation. The leading athlete, she was looking over shoulders for the second athlete. Actually, the second athlete passed her, and she lost the equilibrium, and she fell down, and she could not get up. But then we saw the trainers and officials running to her and trying was going to help her, but somebody shouted, "Do not touch her, leave her." So what would be the situation there when there is receiving of assistance like this? What would be the limit of what would be acceptable or not?
Okay, according to the rule, official or other athletes can help the athlete to a standing position, but that's all. You can pick her up to a standing position, but then they must leave her. She must on her own force go over the finish line. They can't help her over the finish line. We had an incident at one of our big races, the Comrades Marathon. It's a 90-kilometer race where somebody was picked up and they carry him over the finish line. And afterwards, the doctors admitted to us that they carried a dead person over the finish line. So you're not allowed to do that. You can't hang over your shoulders. You can just pick him up to a standing position And from there, he must go on his own.
Yeah. Okay. Any other situations you want to share and ask Pieter? Now is the opportunity. Those who have done the exams, is there any situation which cropped up and you want to share? Seems no, have you done a fantastic job, Pieter? You have answered to everything. Eh?
Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to me. And I hope we will meet one day, all of us.
Just as a we are still open. The floor will be open by, if you have any questions coming to your mind after, you can send it on the sports consulting email, the sports.com.ag@gmail.com, which you know already. And this will be taken by Pieter and replied directly to you. So this is no issues. We are still available for you at any, and not only for the road races, so any of the presentations that is going on. If you have any questions which come to you after the presentations, we will still be available for you to give you to answer and help you to understand.
Thank you.
So that being said, I see one chat. It's a thank you. So that being said, I thank Pieter, and again my friends from ADC, Atletismo Sudamericano, and this I'll get that right surely by the end, Claudia, for putting their Zoom platform at our disposal, at the disposal of ISCA, for us to conduct these courses, these discussion sessions. And Claudia, if you the word of the end to you.
Claudia, you're on mute, Claudia.
Thank you, Michael. Pieter, you can close the room, and I will send the link for Suren, insert in the Facebook this brilliant video conference. Thank you, Pieter.
Thank you very much. You can stop the recording as well.
Okay.